Welcome to Dave and Dharm Demystify, a FinTech Futures podcast, helping make sense of the world of FinTech and digital finance. Please sit back and listen as the two Ds take a subject and discuss it to make it clearer and easier to understand.
Demystifying.
Welcome to today's show, and today we are really privileged to have a couple of complete superstars join us. We've got Gemma and Suresh from Lloyds. Welcome to the show. Gemma, Suresh, could you just do a brief introduction to yourselves and let us know a bit about what you do?
Sure. I was patiently waiting there for Suresh as our almighty leader, but as he's let me take the floor first. So thanks for having me. My name's Gemma. I'm the Consumer Experience Design Director at Lloyds Banking Group. Incredibly privileged to have this role. I've recently been looking after the Group Brand Director role as well. So looking forward to chatting today about, I guess, predominantly the last 6 months and maybe how we move beyond what we've achieved over that time period. So thanks for having me. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, how do I follow that, right? Well, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer by title at Lloyds Banking Group. My role spans all of our 16 amazing brands that touches nearly 30 million customers. I oversee all of our marketing and go-to-market, both from an acquisition perspective and from a one-to-one perspective across all of our touch points. I also oversee our data and decisioning as we speak. And the most interesting part of my day is when I get to hang out with Gem and their design team as we think about experience design as a competitive advantage for us to win in the marketplace.
Thank you. I mean, it's great to have you both on the show. And I think the reason I was kind of keen to get you on was to talk about a couple of things, really. One was about the new brand. So looking out around the billboards and the advertising, you can kind of see there's a new expression of Lloyd's. But that sort of found its way into the mobile app and the website as well. And I was really interested to talk about the opportunity that you saw with the new brand and then how that opportunity translated into the experience through the mobile app in particular. And just to let you know that in preparation for the podcast, I actually set up an account with Lloyds. And it's the first time I think that I've actually set up an account with one of the big banks, and it's taken under 10 minutes. And I guess almost the best bit about the whole experience was the fact that when I sort of logged on into the mobile app for the first time, I saw my Scottish Widow's pension there, and that was a real surprise. You know, I wasn't kind of expecting to see my pension there, and there it was. I mean, as well as a sort of beautiful design, it was really interesting to kind of see that. So, yeah, look, I'd love to sort of dig into a bit more about the sort of brand and the sort of story behind that, and then talk about how that's found its way into the mobile app.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, to understand what's going on today, I should rewind to let's talk about yesterday, today, and tomorrow, perhaps, in 3 sections. The yesterday of it is fascinating because Lloyds and Lloyds Banking Group have a rich history of reinventing itself. And it was a thing that Gemma and I, when I started, we went and looked at our archives. We looked at when Lloyds came about, what were our founding fathers and founding mothers of the firm? What did they want to do? And Lloyds Banking Group went through multiple mergers, acquisitions, changes. And what has been fascinating about it is just the tenacity and the resilience through good times and bad, the ability for the organization to think about the right thing to do for customers. And at the heart of it, it was always about creating prosperity, and which is what is summed up in the sort of helping Britain prosper strategy. And Lloyds of today is a lot changed post the financial crisis. When Charlie Nunn took over as chief executive a couple of years ago now, the mandate was quite clear from UK Inc., from shareholders, stakeholders, from regulators that the firm needed to pivot to become much more customer-centric and create a growth path for itself. So the entirety of what you see now as, sort of slowly new chapters and new pages of the new chapters coming to light started off in the new sort of Charlie's strategy of what does modern Lloyds Banking Group look like? How does it become fit for future? And how does it become in tune with the times of today? So what are we lining up for? I think we're lining up for creating a stable of sustainable brands that will be not just be traditional, but be timeless. If you look at some of these amazing brands of today, which have been around for 100 or 200 years, take Coke, for example, or take even slightly younger brands like Nike, but they've been around for decades. You never say, oh yeah, they're modern for today. They've always been modern. Coke was modern in the 70s when I was young, 80s, 90s, not today. It's always young. So investment in brands important. That's the first big one. That Charlie Jane, who's our chief exec of consumer business, Gemma and I, we all talk about investing in creating modern brands, but not creating modern brands in the way that what we did around the turn of the century, of lots of television advertising to create modern brands. Modern brands are built through every touch point and every experience. So today's philosophy for brand building is what Gemma and I call experience-led brands. And it's not advertising-led brands or comms-led brands or event-led brands, or it is every touch point, therefore experience-led brand. And we are probably leading the charge on this for the industry in many ways, and we can talk about it a little bit. And maybe we can talk down, after a few questions, we can talk about what tomorrow looks like.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess, like, if I look at the brand expression of Lloyds, it looks very fresh. And, to your point about experience-led brands, I guess things like digital, like the mobile app is probably almost the most powerful expression of the Lloyds brand now in many ways, because that's the place that people turn up to every single day. So when you were thinking about the sort of brand revamp, how critical was that digital experience thinking from the get-go? And I guess I'm asking that question because when I was working and doing a lot of experience work, you would be handed a pack and be told to turn that into something digital. And, it was that whole sense of, well, hang on, you've just designed this in for a 2D or branches, or this is really difficult to do from a kind of digital point of view. So I'm kind of interested, Gemma, in terms of how much was that digital thinking built in from the start?
I think you're absolutely right. In the context of our app, I'm confident enough to say it's our primary channel. We've got 22 million digitally active users, and 90% of which are using the app every day. I mean, that is massive. If you imagine, it's 1/3 of the UK population. So if walking down the street, 1 in 3 of those people we're going to have a digital connection with. So that means we're not just a bank, we're part of the everyday lives of millions of people in the UK. So it's a significant channel. It's really important that we get it right. So in terms of your question, did we consider digital where we handed assets? Yes and no. We work really closely with some of the world's best external partner agencies that we've leveraged. We took that in-house. And I mean, I see my role in the bank, or certainly my role in this particular piece of revolutionary change, was one of making sure that we, systematically scale the brand in a way that has meaning in the context of our channels. The primary channel and the release that we've, put the most time and effort collectively. This wasn't just Suresh and I in a room figuring this out. Thousands of people have put time and effort. There's an incredible amount of talent across our organisation. As we do shift towards an experience-led brand company, we have a huge dependency and a great amount of collaboration and teamwork across all of our what we call business platforms. So the way that we partnered with the branding experts, with Suresh and his broader team, I became part of that team. And we worked together to make sure that not only were we working with customers, we did a huge amount of testing, both with, an internal beta community. So friends and family were able to come and use the app in its very early stages, through to a staged release. So we were learning as we went. I think that was probably quite a radical way of releasing, if I'm totally honest. It was done in a time frame that I think probably it's the most complete and significant release that we've done since we launched the app many years ago. It has been quite a significant step change. It's been an absolute joy, a pleasure. Sometimes it felt a bit like a curse, but genuinely, you can imagine how hard this thing must have been. And super proud of it. And at the moment, sentiment is as predicted. We're getting a huge amount of positivity. There is a change curve. We have to realise that with such a significant proportion of the UK population using our app. But super proud of it.
Because it is a big change. I mean, how did you manage to do it so quickly as well? I say that because, Suresh, I guess the brand, you're just over a year into the job, aren't you? Or how have things progressed? Because, again, I talk about this because, going back to the experience I had, you'd be looking to redesign mobile banking or internet banking was a multi-year project in, the days gone past. So how did you manage to do it so quickly?
A couple of things, right? Firstly, I don't think it was as quick as it seems. Yes, the switchover feels quick, but the work in the background has been in the making for a while now.
Okay.
A couple of big enablers, right? I think a couple of years ago, firstly, the business moved to what we call platform structure. The platform structure is much more of cross-functional teams in old money Agile, led by a business platform leader and a technology platform leader. And they have enduring funding. They have clarity around what the roadmaps need to be and what the delivery plans need to be. And those delivery plans are agreed in line with business strategy. And that's super refreshing. And I think what you and I remember, Dave, from our days gone by is the mega IT order workbook and the super prioritization that the businesses need to do in every market, then cross market, then you line it all up and say, okay, what should come first? Should it be regulatory communications or a fraud system, or should it be customer experience system? And as ever, the need to have versus nice to haves. There will be a line there and somebody will chop off the last bits, the long tail. And more often than not, the customer experience stuff falls down in that sort of process. But Lloyds Banking Group moving to a platform style of working, or platform philosophy, is the business is split into 40 platforms. And each of them with clarity, each of them with core capabilities, engineering, DevOps, delivery, technology, their respective investments, product teams, and many of these have design teams inside them. I think that's a unique model for us. I think I've not seen that anywhere else. I think Gem oversees huge parts of our consumer design organization, which sits inside these platforms. So the designers feel quite empowered to do what they need to do. So the big change for us, and it's a decision that Gemma and I made early on, was democratize the brand, create the components, provide it to designers inside these platforms so that they could use it. So it was not, firstly, monolithic IT order workbook or a PDF brand book where the brand police came and said, you can do this, that, and whatnot. So those are the big shifts. That's what modern experience-led brand organizations look like. And we've been able to implement it successfully.
I got to say that, I worked for the bank maybe over 30 years ago, and we all talk about change and the need for change. But one thing that seems to be quite consistent, just from what you said, because I am actually experienced the bank recently, I'd love to. But firstly, the thing about the brand has always been something of passion in the bank. And by the way, I love the work that you've just done with bringing the horse back into the focus, and just the real essence of what it means, I think, is superb. The other thing, what you said about platforms, like I remember in the late 80s working in a project in Bristol where we combined different skill sets in the era of process re-engineering. And that, again, is like combination of bringing IT and business together to get success seems to be consistent. I mean, that's like almost 30 years ago, right? So is that a key factor for what is enabling this agility, do you think?
100%. And decision-making and empowerment is important as well. Maybe, Gem, you can talk about your designers inside the platforms and how the components that they've had inside each of your consumer platforms helps accelerate UX, UI, service design, etc. I think that's a big unlock. So what Gemma do every day is a mega enabler.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, we've worked across various iterations of operating models, and I think that we've seen a huge amount of success as a result of the move to platforms. It might seem obvious, but we do work in Agile methodology. We've got a big shift in terms of cultural mindset. And I think that the one constant, I think we always have had customer centricity. I think Charlie Nunn as a leader is pretty much every time you hear him speak, he will absolutely talk about customers in the first sentence. And that, I guess, is distributed across the business. Everyone understands that well. I think a lot of the complexity comes with a huge and monolithic legacy and history of, I guess, technology choices that preceded even our tenure. So to do something so radically quickly within this new model is massively exciting. And in terms of the design contribution, we have always been a fundamental part of the business. The team, it's around about 350, 400 designers, and we support across all of those 41 platforms. So when you think about, the amount of engineers, absolutely, that makes that number sound quite big, but we have many more engineers. However, we are supporting each and every one of the platforms. So anything that our customers interact with will have had rich and deep expertise from our experienced design community. And that can be everything from very early on, ambiguous hypotheses shaping, all the way through to getting deep and meaningful, enriched data through our design research community. We also have a customer insights capability. So it's everything from understanding where are the real problems that a customer's worrying about, where are the needs, where are the functional capability gaps that we've got within our current products and services. And then we'll move through into things like service design, understanding how, customers traverse the quite complex landscape of managing their finances. So our service designers really do empower the product owners, our engineering community, and understanding, you may be building a feature that's a component part of something that actually forms a really important element of an end-to-end journey. And of course, the more well understood design roles with interaction design and user experience design. So we'll have people that are doing rapid prototypes, allowing us to explore new and exciting opportunities, and we'll test those. And we've absolutely done that as part of the new app release. So yeah, we're entrenched and embedded alongside lots of mixed discipline, multidisciplinary teams. And we're right on the coalface. We're incredibly proud of the fact that Lloyds backs design. I'm so privileged to work in an organisation that genuinely cares about customers and will invest in design. And having a leader like Suresh who's come in and seen that actually it's a differentiator, not only for us organisationally, but actually out there in the marketplace. No other organisations are doing it like we do, empowered in a way that allows us to genuinely put the customer at the heart, and it has equitable, importance with the likes of technology choices, risk, compliance. So yeah, super exciting. And I keep saying it, but it is an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be in such an important role for the UK and for the bank, really. Yeah, it's a dream job. Love it.
Do you know, Gemma, that too, this whole design principle is deep heritage in the bank as well, right?
Yeah.
So when we first rolled out, I say we, Lloyds, I was there, the branch IT system, which is like the first bank to go live on Windows. We had a usability lab, right, in Bristol, where we had like 2-3 rooms with all the cameras set up, the first PCs, the first mouse being used. And literally, we're watching behind a smoke screen, we're watching branch staff for the very first time pick up a mouse, and they're rolling it on the screen. Some are rolling it like this. And it was just like, why don't they get it? But it was the first, we were using PCs, but, this was the first time that PCs were going into the branches. But that whole idea of studying the user and then designing systems and all of the training behind it, et cetera, that's been going on for decades at Lloyds. And it's great to see. Obviously, at the time, I think we had probably about less than a dozen people that really understood kind of UX design. But it's great to see it's like expanded into such a great, discipline.
I was about to say that the big change for us is if you asked someone in banking, if you ask them, whose problem is risk in the bank? It's everyone's problem. Whose problem is experience in the bank? It can't be just user experience people. It has to be everyone's. So I think the big shift that we want to make is from a customer experience perspective, how do we gear the entire organization towards this? It's not just adding more designers is an unlock. The actual unlock is a cultural shift. So Charlie speaks about you're either helping people who are helping customers or you're helping customers directly. There are only 2 types of roles inside the organization. So you got to figure out which one you are and do what you got to do to solve for this. The other big unlock is the role of technology. And with big leaps in technology, the ability for our designers, for our platform leads, for our engineers to bring in the best of modern tech available. All of this will not be You spoke about, bringing a mouse in. It was at that point in time, it was bleeding edge technology, right? We're bringing in completely new stuff. How do we play with this? What is going on? And I think it's important for us to do that, not just with consumers, but also with our own people, to your point, to get them to build capability into the space. And Jane Opperman, our chief exec for the consumer relationships business, is a CIO turned COO turned CEO. So her point was CIO, right? So you can imagine her view on tech and the role of technology and every understanding of ad tech, martech, what these platforms could do is hugely refreshing, because usually, you see banking CEOs come through either the product line or the finance line, and technology is at arm's length. But this was at the heart of what Jane did for many years. And back in the day at Lloyds, she was the CIO for the consumer business back in the day. So the legacy tech that you talk about, she knows that tech. She knows how it's wired. She knows the plumbing. And her view was really interesting. She had a speech at Money Live earlier this year, and her entire hypothesis, or the axioms on which she's building the business is technology has to make humans more human, to help humans achieve their potential. So what can technology do, both for our colleagues and for our customers? And if that is the philosophy in which we're going through, and how do we use technology, I think you can't go wrong. It's not just deployment of random tech, but it is purposeful tech that will help customers meet their needs and free up their time to do other things that they want to do. So the design choices, tech design choices, architecture choices that we see being made every day within Lloyds Banking Group is very different from what I've seen in my past career.
It's a really interesting point, because I guess here we are, you've got a third of the population using the mobile app, a real focus on mobile as the platform and the channel. But, we know that just around the corner is other sort of new technologies. And I guess in order to capitalize on those technologies, you have to have the right mindset, which it sounds like so much of what you've been through is actually about a mind shift change within the organization. And from what Dharmesh is saying, that sort of thread has always been there, but it's kind of interesting to see how that is really sort of something which is front and center. So I've seen the customer centricity myself, because as I say, aside from the beautiful design, and, I appreciate design because of my background, it was really, really awesome to log into the app and see my pension there, because one of the things I know is that people lose track of pensions. So in this instance, this pension, which was in the mobile app, is one that I've been struggling to get into because I've lost the username. I mean, I won't go into, Gemma, the hurdles of getting into Scottish Widows. So we won't but it was there, and I was like, this is really, really interesting. And it sort of just made me feel like, this is an organization I could do business with, because they've put the effort into this. And for me, that was a moment of magic, to be honest with you. So, and I guess when you sort of look across the rest of the marketplace, some of the neobanks don't have the capability or the sort of depth of product offerings at the moment to get people hooked in through some of these other things. So it's kind of really interesting. So 2 questions. One is, like, when you were sort of thinking about the process of design, how much did you kind of look at what was going on from a kind of competitive point of view? And did you sort of benchmark and say, well, this is what we've got to do in order to kind of go beyond that? And then I guess the second question is the broader one, which is this a foundation on which you can kind of build for the next generation of technologies? So 2 very broad questions, but there we go.
In terms of the app itself, asking about how do we, I guess, build for now, looking after the needs of now and in the future, and what we think of, I guess, the neobanks coming in to eat our lunch, or at least trying to, feasting on scraps. I think I was at an event and somebody suggested that we ought to copy Monzo, we ought to copy the neobanks. I actually have a complete flip side view of that. We have got one of the most rich, interesting, and from a product portfolio perspective, an enviable brand portfolio, product portfolio. They could only dream of having 22 million digitally active customers. So I come from a place of And I don't want this to sound like erring on the side of arrogance. This is something to treasure and to nurture. So whilst there might have features and functional capabilities that we look at and think, you know what, that's a pretty cool idea, we still have to found that in the reality of our broad product spectrum, the fact that we have a multitude of different products across our brand portfolio. And actually, how do we make that make sense for our customers? How do we make sure that makes sense for how we want to operate and engage with those customers as we move forward in the future? So I see it more as this is an enviable position to be in, and we must treasure that and build on that for the future. And I think you acknowledging Scottish Widows showing up in your app, that's part of our ongoing strategy to make sure we make the most of not only regulatory change with relation to things like open banking. We want to be able to bring together the very best of our bank, the very best of what we have to offer as an organisation, but do that with context and meaning for customers. So, yeah, it's part of our ongoing ambition. I'm glad you noticed it and that you found it useful. And I genuinely believe that we'll continue to grow and evolve our product offering, and you'll hopefully see some more things that have a lot of meaning and magic moments, which I love that you said that. So, yeah, I don't know whether you've got any reflections on that, Suresh.
Yeah, I want to build on Gem's point, right? Couple of things. The first thing is you got to be able to dream big for what this could feel and look like in line with your business strategy. Then there is a big piece around getting shit done. That's the second circle of the big Venn diagram. The ability to execute at pace, which we spoke about earlier. And the last circle of the Venn diagram is to have fun, right? You got to have the right people in the team, the levity, the banter, the energy off the charts in this place. So when we come together as a leadership team, or when you see teams working, they are under severe pressure, but they know that they'll have to do this together, and they know that this is a super fun place to be and work. To be able to attract 300 plus amazing designers, to be able to create a team of over 1,000 customer journey managers, to be able to think through what should the democratized design system look like for all engineers across here and wherever else they are in offshore locations to use. All of this needs a big dose of optimism and a hope for the future, which is this sort of mega dream of what could this actually look like. And it is super powerful when you're on the sort of dreaming big, getting shit done, having fun flywheel. It's very hard to get off it. People want to wake up and turn up to work, and teams are competing on what features they're developing and how they're improving stuff and constantly iterating. And you spoke about Scottish Widows. We are modernizing Scottish Widows brand again. We've been looking at some of these super traditional old brands, trying to figure out what should it become in the future. If you think about Scottish Widows was born during the Napoleonic Wars, it was to support widows of soldiers from Scotland. And in some ways, it stood for our customers. That's where it started. And then it became about the brand. And then work that we've been doing in line with Scottish Widows' strategy is to digitize the hell out of it and to ensure that it can talk to workplace pensions, but it can do more than that, because it is about customers thinking about their financial future in a sense. It's not just about, pensions is a product, it's a means to an end. Just stepping away and saying, what does it actually do? And especially now in the context of how are we thinking about our aging populations? How are we thinking about our vulnerable populations? How are we solving for gender pension gap? There are so many things that the brand can do and the business is doing to right the wrongs, and then chuck digitization and the power of design and modern brand building into it, then it's house on fire. So we are super excited about taking all our brands down this journey. We spoke a lot about our Lloyds brand, but of course, there is this portfolio of incredibly enviable brands and the mega product set that Gem speaks about. And I think these are all basic components for huge success. We've seen around the world, Dave, you and I have had conversations about incumbents versus disruptors. The game has always been, will incumbents get innovation before disruptors get distribution? And not just number of customers, right? It's also depth. And we've seen this game play out in Asia, in India, in the Middle East, in the US. So are we worried about big tech, fintech, all of this stuff? Absolutely not. This is capability that we can build, as you've seen. The app was always good, right? The app was 4.8 star rated app. It is not that we had a super clunky old world stuff that everyone hated and we had to start from scratch. We've been incredibly lucky because this capability and all of the stuff that Gem and team, the design team, have been doing has been around many years. And we've just been building on those shoulders of the giants to take it wherever it can go into the future with a new philosophy.
I've got to say that about the talent is that, and I'm sorry to keep going back to my past days, but when I left the bank, my boss said, "Why do you want to leave, Dharm? You're doing really well. You're really one of the stars here. Why do you want to go? You've got a big career ahead." And I said, "Well, I feel like this tiny little diamond in a diamond mine. It doesn't matter how much I shine. Like there's so much talent here, it's hard to compete. And it feels like it's still the same, which is a great place to be, by the way." Anyway, aside from that, I wanted to ask, because this is the big challenge for the bigger banks, really, and it has been for some while. I know, even when I was there, we were doing some work around single customer view, etc. How do you transcend the silos in the bank to kind of get to working as one massive team? Because that's got to be pretty key to, getting it all right.
I wouldn't mind going for this one. I think I can probably talk to it, but maybe more leaning towards the context of the democratization and using something like the design system. I think one of the questions that you'd asked before was, we're very much in the time of now, the change is happening, but where do we look to in the future? And I think that this is a holistic shift to experience-led design, experience-led brands. I think we've got to go beyond designing individual journeys and features that are looked after by individual teams. And I think that understanding is starting to come across the business now. And I think when we imagine a future, we've been using AI for years. It's not a new thing. I think that it's like the next industrial revolution or technical revolution, and it's happening faster than the internet. Like that is real as well. So how do we leverage these technologies to allow us to democratize the brand in a way that has meaning for customers? And I genuinely believe component-led design, things like curating meaningful interactions, not just in the app. I think we can do that across our marketing, our communication channels, in social, all sorts of different mechanisms. You hinted at single customer view. I think the area that Suresh mentioned early on around the personalised experiences and communications platform, of which he's now responsible for, I think, again, is going to be, we can supercharge our personalisation efforts. We can use that in combination with the design system. And you can see not only internal efficiencies in the context of what I've just described, but actually how that's going to be a dramatic game changer in terms of how we curate, craft, and really manifest experiences where customers are, when they need it, in a way that brings all of our products and our brand portfolios together with meaning. So, yeah, I'm thinking as we look forward to the future, it is absolutely bright. I can't wait to be part of that future and help craft it with Suresh as our great leader and the wonderful talent diamonds that I'm working around.
You make me feel like I need to come back and work for Suresh.
Yeah.
More importantly, you need to come back and set up your account. I will personally send you the link. Dave can tell you.
Exactly.
It takes 10 minutes, Dharm. 10 minutes.
Look, I was always a Lloyds Bank customer, but then when the split happened in TSB, my branch turned into TSB. So look, I'll be coming back.
Time to come back, Dharm. Time to come back. Well, listen, look, we could go on and on talking. I think we're sort of at time. I mean, it'd be great actually in a few months to kind of catch up again and sort of see how things have gone. But I was just reflecting on something. I was just reading some research from a company called Curinos about switching behavior in the UK. They then made the mistake of saying that they'd also done a shopper survey in the US and Canada. And I was like, okay, tell me all about that as well. And, what is kind of interesting about the UK market is just, in a way, how advanced we are. What you talk about is fascinating about Scottish widows, because I think actually the UK, we've done a great job of helping people manage money in the here and now. And I think, Gemma, with some of the other things that you've added into the app, you've kind of take it to the next step. Congratulations, because I think it's a very rounded experience. I'm very excited to sort of see what personalization will kind of mean around it. I think what nobody's cracked is that managing money in the future. I mean, I did some interesting research with a bunch of people where you end up going, yeah, look, these people can really manage their money now. So I'm kind of really interested in that next step and how, like, you take a heritage brand like Scottish Widows, which is a really beautiful brand, but make it kind of digitally fit for purpose. So, there isn't really a question. It's more of a kind of like, I'm really interested to sort of see how that plays out.
Yeah.
You mentioned Curinos, and we did touch on design research, and I think that's a critical part in evolving the brand. We've included our customers on this journey. There's clearly a big dose of optimism, creativity that we've thrown in the mix, but I think that's the key part for that next stage. We're making sure that customer centricity stays at the heart of everything we do.
Brilliant. Brilliant. What a brilliant way to finish. So thank you so much for joining us. And it's been a really fabulous conversation. And it's been great for Dharmish to revisit his old horn. So
it's an absolute pleasure. And we'd love to come back. I'm sure we can arrange that. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you for tuning in to Dave and Dharm Demystify. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tune in next time as we take another topic and demystify it.